Good morning and welcome back to Let's Talk New Mexico. I'm your host, Ty Bannerman. Quick shout out to my mom who literally just texted to let me know she's listening. Thanks, Mom. So as the old song says, get hip to this timely tip. 2026 marks the centennial year of one of our country's most storied roads, the highway that's the best, which took drivers motoring west, none other than Route 66. Formerly New Mexico's primary east-west highway, 66 is no longer officially designated, but that's not stopping towns, museums, drivers, and historians from celebrating its legacy all year long. Today on Let's Talk New Mexico, we are cruising Route 66, metaphorically speaking. We'll be examining its iconic place in New Mexico's history, from looking at how its neon-soaked aesthetics were influenced by Native American communities to honoring the surprising role it played in our state's queer history, with plenty of other stops along the way. And this is your chance to share your stories of Route 66 with us on the air. Did your family cross the country on the storied road? What was that experience like? Or do you live in a town that changed with the coming of the highway? Tell us all about it. Or if you want to talk about Route 66 classics vibes, we're here for that too. You can email us at letstalk@kunm.org or call in live right now, 505-277-5866. That's 505-277-KUNM. We have a call from Anna in Albuquerque. Good morning, Anna. I understand that you have a memory of Route 66 that you'd like to share.
Just a couple of things. I'm a native Albuquerquean. My parents, my whole family are native New Mexicans, and my parents married. They're from Las Vegas, New Mexico. They married in 48, moved here to Albuquerque in 48, and they spent their first night in Albuquerque at the De Anza Motel, which is just 3 blocks from where I live.
I think you're in my neighborhood.
And I'm still living in the same house that they bought. And so I've grown up on Route 66, and, the stories about Nob Hill and the J.C. Penney and the Highland Shopping Center. Yeah, lots of good memories. So thank you very much for discussing this.
Yeah, wonderful. So the De Anza, of course, underwent a pretty major renovation. Do you have memories of it from before that?
Well, I was born in 58, but boy, does my mom have memories about shopping in Nob Hill, and that was uptown for her. That was, or J.C. Penney to the east, and that was 48. That was pretty much how far the city went, unless you went downtown.
Okay, well, thank you so much for calling in today, Anna. I appreciate your memory there. We got an email from Jan in Albuquerque. She writes that she was at the post office the other day to buy a sheet of the Route 66 stamps. She was happy to see that New Mexico was included in the 8 stamps, including the Grant's Cafe sign. The man in line behind her just happened to tell her that the sign was from his parents' cafe and that he had saved the sign and brought it to Albuquerque. And you can see it still lighting up the night at his business at 1701 Broadway. So she had to drive by to see it, and now it is her favorite Route 66 sign because she knows the story of how it was saved. Well, we have a SpeakPipe message from listener Andrew. Let's go ahead and hear what he has to say.
When I was a young boy in the 50s, my father and I and the family used to head up to Colorado through New Mexico. We would invariably pass Route 66 over there by Albuquerque. My father always told me, keep an eye out for a Corvette with 2 young men traveling back and forth because they're looking at America. I never forgot that feeling, and I always looked every time we passed on Route 66. In my later years, I watched every episode of Route 66, which were many seasons, and I never forgot the magic of that. Incidentally, I don't think any of those episodes were ever really filmed on Route 66.
So Andrew is referring to the classic television show Route 66, featuring quintessential young American men Todd and Buzz as they travel the country, solving crimes, having adventures, and as Andrew points out, it was never once filmed on Route 66 itself. Now, I'd like to bring into the conversation my next guest, Lazarus Letcher, a PhD candidate in American Studies at the University of New Mexico, who recently published an article with El Palacio magazine, Cruising the Mother Road, which details the history of queer and trans usage of Route 66 with an emphasis on Bob Dameron's address books, a guide that LGBTQ plus travelers use to identify safe businesses and lodging on the highway in much the same way that the famous Green Book did for African American motorists. Thank you so much for coming in today, Lazarus. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
So tell me about these address books and how you found out about them.
Yeah, so Bob Dameron began publishing these address books in the early 1960s. He was a bar owner in San Francisco, which we know is, of course, a little gay mecca, still is, and was wondering what else is out there. So he allegedly traveled to over 200 locations across 37 states in those first few years to gather either gay-owned businesses or businesses that were safer for gay folks. And he published these guides and sold them out of his bar in the Castro district. And what I find interesting is they very much intentionally did not have gay in the title. So if someone else were to stumble upon this book, they wouldn't have, a guide of where to find gay folks and, possibly enact harm upon us.
Kind of an if you know kind of situation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what do these books tell us about life on Route 66, especially in New Mexico?
Yeah, so just looking at the guides, and there's an incredible website called Mapping the Gay Guides where you can find digitized maps and archives of all of these guides from the 1960s through the early 2000s. But looking at the very first entries for New Mexico in 1965, half of them are on Route 66. So it's definitely very much a main artery for queer life in New Mexico.
Very interesting. Looks like we have a call from Kara in Albuquerque. Good morning, Kara. What would you like to add to the conversation?
Oh, hello. Yes, I'm from Albuquerque, and many, many years ago, I was doing some work in Gallup and came into Gallup late in the early evening with another person from our office. And the parking lot at the El Rancho Hotel was just filled with vintage, beautiful primo U.S. cars, American cars. And I thought, what the heck? So I approached a man, very tall, with a cowboy hat way the heck on his head, on the top of his head. And in his very heavy Swedish accent, he said it was the Swedish Route 66 Car Club.
Wow.
So those cars had been trucked, shipped all the way to Chicago, where they started their route.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was incredible. And, of course, for the Europeans, Western U.S. history is fascinating.
Yeah.
So, the other thing I was just going to mention is that Albuquerque has the longest stretch of intact Route 66 going through an urban area. And we have incredible neon signs here. And if you haven't seen the doghouse sign, go see the doghouse sign.
Doghouse sign is wonderful. I believe it was recently refurbished, actually.
Exactly.
The city may have had something to do with that. Is that right, Tanya?
That's correct. Yeah.
You are right.
Well, let's go. But thank you for calling in, Kara. But Lazarus, going back to queer-friendly businesses on Route 66, were there any that stood out to you that you found were, interesting or emblematic of a certain time?
Yeah, and again, looking at kind of like primo Route 66 neon days, we were not seeing neon rainbow flags outside of these establishments.
Right.
It's very much a nod and a wink. But what stood out to me was that there's only one still standing from these early guides, the Albuquerque Social Club, which is still along Central Avenue. So that one definitely still sticks out to me. And I think what stuck out the most was how much I had to reach out to community to write this article, because the queer archives are very much unofficial.
Right.
And folks, again, not wanting to name these businesses as LGBTQ owned or friendly, we had to dive into a lot of personal archives to kind of flesh out this story.
I mean, is there a feeling now that these are stories that can finally be told, or are folks still a little worried about kind of putting them out there?
Both and. The folks that created Mapping the Gay Guide included this really interesting disclaimer that they couldn't control how folks used the information that came from making these guides more accessible, of like, oh, grandpa used to go to that bar a lot. I guess I learned something. Or, some of these establishments that are still open. Visibility is a double-edged sword. We're very much seeing, especially as a member of the trans community. Yeah.
And it sounds like that's probably kind of generational too.
I think it's generational. I think more of these stories are coming out. I want to uplift Storm Miguel Flores' documentary, The Whistle, which is on PBS. It's an incredible look at lesbian culture, specifically in Albuquerque from like the 70s to 90s of high schoolers, and really exploring like why was Albuquerque such a safe space for LGBTQ folks at that time. So I think folks are getting more comfortable sharing these stories, and also with what's happening federally, there's also still a desire to protect ourselves.
Sure. Did you gain any insight as to why Route 66 in particular might have been such a clustering of businesses that were open in this way?
That's a great question. I think the fact that it was just such a well-trod road. Another thing that came to mind that was going to be the original focus of the article was how important UNM has always been to the LGBTQ plus community. The first Albuquerque Pride was born partially out of a student group here, the Juniper Club. So I think having UNM and having that being such an LGBTQ magnet, we see a lot of businesses pop up around university spaces.
Right, and we're going to come right back to the Albuquerque Pride history. We're getting our kicks this morning by talking about the history of old Route 66. I'm speaking with Lazarus Letcher about their article, Cruising the Mother Road in El Palacio magazine. And right before the break, you mentioned that Route 66 in Albuquerque is the site of the Pride Parade here. I believe it's the only Pride Parade that actually uses Route 66 anywhere along the route. Again, why do you think that is?
I think Route 66, especially for the queer community, has been such a through line connecting us nationally. A lot of folks just land here on Route 66, kind of like Bugs Bunny. But one of the things that kept coming up as I was interviewing folks in community was what was known as the cruise, which was the route that queer and trans folks would take in Nob Hill, Silver, Morningside, Central, that area, and just slowly driving around. And some of it was to make certain types of connections, I'll say, and it's centered around Morningside Park, which is a very important site for the LGBTQ plus community. And every year, Pride Weekend begins with a candlelight vigil in that park to kind of honor that history. So I believe that's why Central became one of the main spot for Albuquerque Pride, which just celebrated 50 years this summer.
That's right. And what is your personal history and relationship to Route 66?
Yeah, I go into it a lot in this article, but I grew up mostly in Indiana, which is a character-building place to grow up Black and trans, I will say.
Oh, man.
So we spent a lot of time in Chicago to kind of get some culture, and I remember seeing the sign that was the start of Route 66. And I'm coming up on 12 years in New Mexico, and so many of my favorite memories of coming into myself as a queer and trans person take place along Route 66, either at UNM, in the classroom, at the LGBTQ Center, going to Effects, one of my first gay bars ever, and plastering myself to the side of the bar, too scared to talk to anyone, or playing trivia at Albuquerque Social Club.
Wonderful. What was like the most surprising thing that your research for this article uncovered?
That's a great question. I think we were really blown away by how little we could, again, rely on official archives to flesh out the story. Again, El Palacio is an incredible magazine. They're hosting a reading with a lot of us from this issue on August 2nd at Fusion, 2 p.m. And for a magazine, you need photos. It was hard to tell this story without photographs, but we would go to the official New Mexico archives and get, the boxes that were labeled LGBT history, and it would be 2 boxes. Very few photos, a lot of flyers and stuff. It was incredible to see how many events have taken place. But it's beautiful to see how the community can fill that gap. I want to name drop Havens Levitt, who was an Albuquerque teacher for many years. And most of the images from this article just came from her scrapbooks, came from the things that she held on to. So this is a plea to everyone in the New Mexico LGBTQ plus community, especially my elders, to hold on to that ephemera, to digitize what you can, because your stories matter immensely.
Wow. Well, thank you for joining us today, Lazarus. One thing that we haven't talked a lot about so far is how we're celebrating this centennial. Cities and towns across New Mexico will be marking the 100th anniversary of Route 66 in a variety of ways, and that includes the state's largest city, Albuquerque. My next guest, Tanya Lenti, is the Marketing Manager and Public Information Officer for Albuquerque's Arts and Culture Department. Good morning, Tanya.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell me, what is it? We've talked a lot about Route 66, but in your mind, what is important about Route 66 in Albuquerque?
I really think the importance is the connection that it gave the country, the world. It gave them adventure, a sense of journey, and a way to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. And I think we've talked about all kinds of different experiences that people have had on Route 66 today, and I think that's fascinating that it kind of is this unifying thread.
Yeah, definitely.
So this coming weekend is Route 66 Summerfest. How is the Centennial going to be celebrated this year?
Well, Route 66 Summerfest is an annual event in Nob Hill. This year is no exception. Of course, we've embraced the Centennial, so we are leaning into all of the eras during the Mother Road era and beyond by having just a variety of music and events and cars that celebrate Route 66 culture through Albuquerque.
And am I correct that there's 66 cars that are going to be shown, or some enormous number of cars celebrating the road sort of numerically, right?
You're right. So we can't celebrate Route 66 without celebrating the car culture that comes with it. Mm-hmm. So we aim to get 100 cars on the Mother Road for Route 66. It's 100 different cars from different local car clubs, lowriders, classics, vintage. We really hope that there's something that just catches someone's eye.
Is it all different eras, or is it mainly focused in one particular one?
All different eras, and we recruited these cars by an open application process, like I said, from local car clubs. And so we're looking to line the streets with cars that really evoke memories from a long time ago, and even more recent culture with what people are doing now with the car clubs and the lowriders. We really want good representation.
And so it's not just Summerfest, but it's going to be a centennial celebration all year long, right? What else is the city up to?
Yeah, so Route 66 Summerfest is going to be the official summer party of the year. Can't miss. It's this Saturday in Nob Hill from 5 to 10 p.m. In addition to Route 66, we also have our Route 66 Remixed Art-Fueled Road Trip, which is open and active. And within the area of Route 66 Summerfest, there are a number of art activations that our visitors can experience there as well.
So tell me, what is an art activation? How does this work?
So Route 66 Remix is really the city's centennial project. It's our signature project that brought together artists, community members, Route 66 enthusiasts, and many partners throughout Albuquerque. And the art activations are a combination of large-scale murals, sculptures, and even some augmented reality stops that you can access with a smartphone.
Very 2026. So when you activate one of these augmented realities on your smartphone, what are you going to see and hear?
Yeah, so each of our art stops along Route 66 has a sign with a QR code. You can look that up, click on the web portal, and follow a few instructions, allow some access. As we all know, you've got to allow that access. And then you will have the audio guides automatically start up, and those will have some beautiful poetry and words by former poet laureate Hakeem Bellamy.
And I think I saw that Jessica Helen Lopez is also one of the poets that's on the list there.
You are right. She actually has a poem at the Special Collections Library at Central and Edith, which right there on Route 66, Albuquerque's first public library. She's got her own poem, and that's also an augmented reality stop.
And so do you need to download a special app for this, or what do you need to do to make your smartphone work in this way?
You don't need to download an app. It is web-based. You go to route66remixed.com, and it will take you through the steps you need to access the audio guides. It's also a map with GPS coordinates.
Okay. And what else is, let's see, what do we got going on over at the Route 66 Visitor Center?
I was just there a couple of days ago taking some fresh photos, and let me tell you, that Route 66 Visitor Center has such a great view of the city.
It certainly does, yeah.
And we are just so excited that we have activated that new facility, and we had a very successful music series on Saturdays. It's finished up as we prepare for Route 66 Summerfest this weekend, but we're looking to activate it with more outdoor concerts. Right now, we have Centennial Roots, which is a photography exhibition by 3 New Mexico photographers, and you can check out the sites along Route 66 through their lenses, and very talented photographers. And the exhibition is just a really diverse way of looking at how 3 photographers can experience something so differently along the same route.
And so the International District Library, that's right on Route 66. I believe that's still the city's newest library, right?
You are correct.
Okay. What's any events planned for that spot?
The International District Library has hours of interesting programming and story times and clubs that meet. Centennial related, they are one of our stops to pick up the Route 66 remixed map, which I realize a large paper map does not translate on radio. But in addition to the Route 66 remix project, we developed a printed old school road map, just like your parents might pick up from AAA back in the day. And it's really a guide to the project. And so you can pick these up at any of our public libraries that are along Route 66.
And what sorts of things, what sorts of information can you get from that?
So the one side is an entire artistic interpretation of the 18 miles of Route 66 in Albuquerque, all the way from the Tijeras Canyon all to 9 Mile Hill, where Route 66 Visitor Center is. It's colorable. You can spend a lot of time with it. Super talented young artists developed this especially for the project. On the flip side, it details all of the artists that are involved in the Route 66 Remix project, our partners, and it'll give you a little bit of taste of the poetry that goes along with the visual stops.
Okay, well, that sounds amazing. What is your personal favorite site on Route 66?
Oof.
In Albuquerque.
Wow, what a hot spot to be in, Ty.
Think carefully.
Yes, so... You know, 4th and Central is considered the historic crossroads of Route 66 because the old route crosses the new route. And that is a very special location. If you stand there, you can just kind of feel and imagine all of the different people that traveled in that intersection throughout the different eras. So that's a pretty special space.
That's right.
And I do have to tell you again, Route 66 Visitor Center. That view of the city, and you can just look down and see everything. It's pretty special.
And there's some old neon signs on exhibit there. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you so much for mentioning that. We have a pretty modest sign park, although it is significant, with some historic signs from a local collector that we are exhibiting in the sign park area, which is now open. We haven't had a big announcement because we're waiting on some electrical stuff, which that'll be a teaser. But people can go walk through. We've got walkable pathways, some seating areas. They can go and experience some Route 66 Mother Era neon signs.
Great. And just so you're not the only one on the hotspot having to choose your favorite Route 66 spot, we're going to go ahead and do this round robin style. Lazarus, you're next. What's your favorite Route 66 site?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to say the Singing Road.
The Singing Road.
That leads you into Tijeras Canyon. It's a little terrifying the first time you hit those rumble strips, and you know you're speeding when that song is a little sharp. But I think it's just a New Mexico magical moment.
Yeah. So for our listeners that may not be familiar, what is this incredible thing you're talking about?
Yeah, as you are on 333, which is still part of historic Route 66, headed towards the Tijeras Canyon, as your tires grace the white line, your car begins to sing to you, and it's America the Beautiful.
That's right.
And there's something about that song being dissonant while you're speeding that is an article in and of itself.
Now, I understand that it's actually not being maintained anymore. It still works. So maybe if our listeners haven't checked it out yet, they should do it soon because it might not last forever. Thank you so much for everyone who called in and emailed us. Big thank you to Dennis Ziminsky, Danielle Means, Lazarus Letcher, and Tanya Lenti. You can comment on this show by email at letstalk@kunm.org. You can find us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Audio from today's show will be up on our website soon, and you can also watch this episode on our YouTube channel later today. Find the Let's Talk New Mexico podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Next week, we're talking about screwworms, the drought, and other issues affecting ranching in the state. I'm Ty Bannerman for Let's Talk New Mexico on 89.9 KUNM. Our engineer is Marina Spencer. Florian Knowles handled the phones, and Megan Camrick produced the show this week.